Hello. It's always fun when you pop into a room and it's just like you staring at yourself. And get everything pulled up here. Hey, Adam. Let's see what we got here. We're a little early, so I'm just kind of pulling things up and getting things ready to go. Hopefully everyone's doing all right and having fun. Let's see how this works. Yikes. I'm not going to be able to see anything here in about 2 seconds with this, am I? Nope. Wrong way. There we go. Thanks. I actually just got back from Texas, Adam. Went down there for a documentary they're doing about hemp and cannabis in the state of Texas. And I think I'm the only non-Texan or non-Texas resident that was a part of that. And it was pretty cool. So I may end up testifying in front of Congress at some point, which is a weird. You go down for an interview to be on a documentary, and all of a sudden you're now a participant in something with Congress. So go figure. Go Texas, right? And by the way, I learned that you can use Texas as a verb. It's one of those transient verbs that it can be, like you get passed by a tow truck hauling a van, you go, oh man, Texas. Or if you go through and you see somebody walk around the street wearing a giant mariachi sombrero, no pants, drinking beer in the middle of the street in Austin, Texas. It works every time. So it's just funny stuff. But yeah, Austin's fun, weird, but we had a good time. And took the film crew out to the Salt Lick Barbecue. So for those of you who don't know what the Salt Lick Barbecue is, it is started out as a mom and pop kind of place and turned into a Disneyland for barbecue. I mean, it is, the parking lot's like 2 acres. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Actually, we've got time because we're still waiting on the official start here at 10. So I'm going to see if we can manipulate technology here real quick on the fly. So this will be fun. Let's find a good representative picture here that I don't have licensing access to. There we go. All right. So for those of you who are not meat people, I apologize. But this is kind of amazing. So this is the Salt Lick Barbecue. This is their pit, which is absolutely phenomenal. $26 all you can eat for barbecue. I mean, it makes things so amazing. But yeah, there you go. That's a good one. Just you walk in and you can just smell it. The food's amazing. It tastes great. So yeah, so that's the food portion of our show today. So thank you all for letting me do that. When they give you the tools and you can drive the bus yourself. So it is kind of weird because I can't see anybody that's in the booth. So anyone that's in here that wants to say hi or like that, definitely drop a name in the chat here and all that kind of stuff so I can say hi and all that if you want a quick shout out. And then when we do the presentation, I am flying totally blind. So I can't necessarily see any live questions that might pop up, but we will have some questions at the end. And we'll have some fun, but getting everyone packing in here. Kind of loading all in. So many different things to do. And it's fun sitting here by yourself too, by the way. So if anyone's got any weird questions, let me know. Morning. If everyone's got their coffee. I'm a coffee guy. Coffee and tea. More coffee than tea, but these, by the way, are addictive and they are not to be toyed with because it starts a long path. Road to monster coffee addiction. Because why wouldn't you do both, right? So just waiting a few more minutes here, but having some fun. Let's see if we can do a poll here. Ooh, we can do a poll. Let's have some. So let's see here. Trying to think of what a good poll would be here for the next 5 or 6 minutes while we're waiting for the official 10 o'clock start. I know AIM keeps a good schedule and things. They like to keep things moving along and all that. So I'm just kind of making sure that didn't have any technical difficulties. My computer decided to update this morning, so I had the moment of panic watching the progress bar just inch slowly away. And I'm like, I have to be on camera here shortly. Like, please, please, please. So I've got every laptop I have access to is opened at some point trying to get this thing working, but we got it up and running. So good stuff. Oh, here we go. I got an idea. I got one. Just because we got talking about barbecue, we're gonna have a little fun with it. Ready? Let's go Nashville. No, we won't do that. We'll leave it open like that. But cool. Well, thank you, the 15 of you, for showing up early. Punctuality is a virtue, unfortunately, these days. I commend you for all showing up on time. Hopefully, you're all seated. You're all comfortable. You have your feet up. Anyone needs a mint or a pillow or anything like that. The exits will be here and here. Your computer is capable of a water landing only once. I don't know. It's just riffing to kill some time and not be totally boring. But as you can tell, we're going to have a little bit of fun. Try to keep it fun. So we'll see what we got going on this way. But we do, I have been traveling this past week, like I mentioned earlier, but I want to thank the sponsors for Infotech. I did not get a chance to update our slide to directly thank them for that, but we're definitely doing what we can to get things going through. So let's see what we've got here. Get things rolling. Got about another 5 minutes. Morning. Oh, Lincoln, Nebraska. I didn't get to Lincoln as much as I used to. And then in the recent several months or last couple of years, I've been down there quite a bit more. And I was driving through with a friend, and I said, you know what? We got to hit Rockin' Runza. Like, that's how old I am. Rockin' Runza existed, and now it doesn't. And I was very disappointed on a long drive back from way out western Nebraska to not be able to get Rockin' Runza experience for a friend of mine. But that's what happens. So I don't know why this is food-based. Apparently I'm hungry. But, we're all hanging out and having a good time. Anybody in here from outside of Nebraska or Iowa? Just curious to see what kind of reach we might have with the audience this morning. Dr. Pepper, yeah. KC, oh, that's why. That makes sense. So, interesting story. If anyone's heard of a flaming Dr. Pepper, talk about a weird segue, right? Flaming Dr. Pepper is basically 151 rum, amaretto, and beer. You light the shot on fire. Happened to just meet a guy in Texas who loves Dr. Pepper the same way that sounds like a couple of us do. But he has also had an experience where trying to drink a flaming Dr. Pepper, someone bumped his arm and got fire right up his sleeve. And that is not how you should be drinking those. So anybody that's into childish college level shots should do that. So.
Hi, my name is Isaac, and I'm your moderator from AIM.
Perfect. Hey, Isaac. You have a heck of a studio set up. You got me beat by quite a bit.
You know, I do this all the time. I got to be legit, you know.
Yep. Got the good green screen. I just went old school and just printed something, stuck it to the wall.
Yeah, we got it all painted up on the background and stuff. And this is where they filmed some of the different parts of today's thing. So,
oh, very cool. Yeah, we're just doing the old song and dance of early people, keeping them entertained and talking about all kinds of fun stuff. So
awesome.
But yeah. So far, the turnout looks pretty good. 339 people, it looks like, so far. Early morning. I'm sure that'll increase like it did for HDC. So, hey.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you, Justin?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Doing my thing. Have to wear a tie to Infotech as all my previous years.
You know, I after being in Texas for a week, I thought about just doing this and going full cowboy. But
way to wrangle that data.
I gotta get in there and get that data. Yeah, data doggies. And then it is COVID, so I do have Plan B. So if we need to really social distance and all that, I got this thing to put on too.
Oh wow!
You could rock that. Do an entire presentation in a gas mask. That's a whole different level of.
You know, the audio wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I was screaming through that thing too. So
okay. Well, you'd lose your voice in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, you'd go hoarse in about 2 minutes, but that is definitely worth the $30 I paid on eBay for it. So,
but if you're ready to do, you can do some Fallout cosplay with it.
Yeah, it does have a little drinking straw too that comes with the canteen. So the joke was during COVID I could continue to have margaritas.
That's pretty good.
But a Czechoslovakian surplus gas mask from the late 1980s, early 1990s. Probably don't want to drink that.
No.
Yeah. It could be a little weird, but hey, it is 10 o'clock. So I guess we're at a point where I should probably share my screen and start this.
I was going to heckle Isaac briefly, but he jumped out.
Oh, figures. It's in and out.
But so good luck with the Prezo. And
cool. Thank you.
Well.
Perfect. Yeah. Hope I don't crash everything.
Nah.
All right. Well, let's fire this up. So, kind of like I mentioned earlier, when I'm doing this, I've got a full screen, so I can't see any questions like that. But if anybody has any questions, just throw them in the chat, and we'll get to them here towards the end. But we'll kind of start this thing off. So my name is Justin Trowbridge, and this is Cultivating a Data Team from Within. So we're going to talk about some different aspects of things that we learned from our exposure here at Contemporary Analysis. This is obviously the hero pick that I have to have for all the presentations and things like that. But I'm the business development officer for Contemporary Analysis and its subsidiaries. With a virtual conference, you're welcome to definitely pull up my LinkedIn and see the full details and all that. And then this, of course, is I've been stuck inside COVID too long and have Photoshop, so I had to become the dude for a bit, but having a little fun with it. So the big question is, your data team, right? When companies talk about adding data, there are choices at hand, and those choices can make or break a company, especially with the recent paradigm shift we've seen with COVID and working remotely and things like that. So it's exciting to see this shift because companies are becoming more data reliant, but they're kind of fighting their way through things and learning some different stuff. So that's where this came out of. But how it usually works, how you typically see this get deployed, is someone is exposed to data. Doesn't matter who, but somebody in the company is talking to someone. They have a presentation from their company, whatever, and some data comes up that's just mind blowing. It's earth shattering. Like, that's cool. We should do data, right? So that's the first thing they step into is let's do data, and literally it's that wide open, right? It's just do data. And nobody really knows what that means. So what ends up happening is the C-suite or the management executive teams are uncertain of what that ROI is going to be. Because keep in mind, a lot of them that aren't people that come from data culture or data companies will see development of a new team as an expense, not as a way to generate income, but it's an expense. And there's definitely a cost to running a data team, but then the ROI compounds over time because you start to build things. So when you're uncertain of something, you kind of look for a half step. You look for a measure of in between. And that's where they say, well, what about Bob? Or what about Dave? Or what about Tammy or whoever? Could they do it? And that person is usually just kind of picked out of a crowd and almost a sacrificial lamb, which is not necessarily the way that you want to do that. And it's hit or miss because of that. If you just grab whoever has the right halfway background of what they're doing here, you might be okay. But more often than not, you throw somebody to the wolves like that and they're going to miss. So when they fall flat, then all of a sudden, well, data's dumb, right? Or it doesn't fit our business model, or we tried it, we checked the box, now we should move on. And then maybe you start over. Maybe you go down the line a little bit and you go, you know what, maybe Steve wasn't the right guy. Maybe it wasn't this, maybe it was just too early or whatever. And that's kind of the typical flow we see. But this is kind of the nightmare scenario for those people. Hey, we're doing data now. You know Excel, right? Which is not typically the best way to start rolling into data. But if you're that person that gets picked out to be that sacrificial lamb, this is kind of what you're looking down the barrel of. The reason why you fail or people fail with this kind of deployment is because there's lack of understanding of data culture. When you start doing data-driven decisions, you are embracing data at all points. You should be. Because the data will layer in top of other data and top of other data. And the more layering of data you get, the more complex and sophisticated the outcomes can be, the more prediction you can do, all the good things that you need to do with data. A techie does not mean a data-y, right? So just because I can put Cat5 cables in and hook up the Wi-Fi and pull the plug and plug it back in when it goes out, does not mean I'm a data person. There's a specific mindset. There's a skill set, there's a mentality, there is a passion that burns in a data person that doesn't burn in someone who's just a tech person. So that's where we see that a lot. You easily see people that get satisfied with a yes, right? Because you've picked someone, put them on the spot and said, hey, you know what? You're going to be our data person. They always run into the yes, okay, oh, yes, 100%, because they are afraid to say no. So when someone asks them a question, they will say yes, and then they will go have a panic attack in their office or around the corner later, trying to figure out how to make that yes happen. There's a lack of traction, right? So if I grab somebody off this chat and go, you're my data person, go, and throw you in the deep end of the pool, you are going to flail around for a bit, trying to find information, trying to find the starting point for whatever initiative I task you to do. And so you scramble for a while before you actually get somewhere. There's a lot of pressure to succeed too, right? Your boss gives you this huge opportunity, right? You're the data person. You got to roll with it. And if you fail, it could mean your job. And it wasn't your choice. You were the person that was just literally, you are the person. So sometimes that stress can be detrimental, and sometimes it can be unhealthy for some people, to be quite honest. But the other thing is they go too big too fast, right? So you look at a company that might be keeping some records, some data points, but not actually doing anything with it. For them to go, hey, you know what? We're doing artificial intelligence. You start on Monday. That is a project that, after having built AI solutions and all that, is probably going to fail on an epic level. And it could be what burns up a lot of cash in a tight economy, that ends up being the project that sinks the company. So there's so many other little things and nuances that can come into this. It's tough to nail them all, but this gives you a good indication of what could happen, where you see these failure points. But that's one way that we see data kind of getting adopted. The other way you see it looks pretty familiar, right? So exposure to data, we've talked about that. We should do data. Yeah, that's cool. C-suite's still uncertain of the ROI. They're not sure if it's going to be a 10x multiplier or a 2x, or if it's going to be a cost that they have to mitigate the bottom line. The new one is, let's hire a new person, right? So don't even look internal and go, let's just go find somebody, right? And and so they hire somebody into that. Well, that can be hit or miss depending on their level of education, depending on their experience, depending on their skill sets, depending on any number of things. We'll get into that in a minute. And then we're right back to, well, data's dumb. We did that and that doesn't work. You maybe start over. Yet again, the other thing that comes in when you have a new person come in, or a data specific person, you may have to undo their previous attempt when you start over. So if you bring somebody in that has some skills and some acumen and all that, they may start to deploy a solution, and then all of a sudden, if you hit the data is dumb apex, then all of a sudden you have to unwind what they did, or unpack all that, or decrypt it, or any number of things, right? Which can add to the time. So the outside hire is it's an easy fit, right? You just go find a hired gun. Well, let's go walk through what it looks like to do that. You have to submit a request to human resources. Hey, I want to hire a new person. Great. Because we all know that filing paperwork with HR is a fast and seamless process. And I apologize for anyone in HR that may have seen that. I love what you guys do, but it can be a little painful if you're an A-type driver personality trying to get something done. Then you have to find the money in the budget, right? A good, fully fledged, fully vetted data scientist is not a cheap acquisition. If you go and hire an Ivy League data scientist trained with 10 years experience or something like that, you are easily in the six-figure range, which is great for data scientists, but it's terrible if you're a fledgling company that's just getting into it. So you got to find a lot of money in the budget. And you start looking, right? So you put out your requirements, and data scientists are typically very structured people, where if you say I need 8 years and a PhD, well, you can have someone that has 10 years but no PhD, and they would not apply to that because they don't fit that checkbox. It's a very different mindset, but it's something that the requests and all that. Then you get into salary negotiations, right? So I've got a budget where I've agreed that I can do 100,000. This person's asking for 120,000. Well, I got to negotiate down into that. And if they don't want to play, then I got to start the whole loop over again. If I do hire that person, there's the new hire ramp time, right? Which is the time it takes to get comfortable, to understand the business, the where to park, where I shouldn't park, where everyone goes to lunch. Those things take time to ease into. And so you're going to have some time adjusting to a new company. They may need to understand your business. So if you find a data scientist that is from outside of your industry, let's say trucking, if they're outside the trucking industry and they've never worked in the logistics business, you put them into a trucking data science position, they have to learn trucking as well as everything else. So it adds more time to it. So what you end up getting is a sheepish version 1. And by that, I mean, they want to prove their worth. So they'll push the envelope, but they don't want to go too far because they have to gauge what your reaction is going to be. So here's version 1. Is this good enough? And if it's not, they have to leave themselves some wiggle room to add a V1.2 or a V2 or wherever that might be. But they also don't know where that line is on the backside of it. Like, hey, is this too much if I overstep my bounds? So they get a sheepish version 1 that is kind of a mixed bag of results and what you actually see when you get that deployed. And lastly, if they're not a culture fit, the bull in a china shop scenario happens a lot. Both directions, right? So if your company's full of A-type personalities and they're just driving and they're just, everyone's like, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this. And you bring in somebody who is an analytic, who's a little introverted, who doesn't know these people, that is a social nightmare for some people. And if you're at odds and you're conflicting like that, it takes longer to get things running. So here's why this is a failure with that new hire, right? Some of it is we've just covered a little bit, but I'll kind of go through and break it out. But if they're outside your current culture, right? So they don't understand what is normal behavior inside your company. Everyone has a culture of it. They really champion it, or it kind of happens organically, or it's something that is toxic, which I've worked for toxic culture companies, but they're outside of that. And so they have to figure out what that is. We've talked about the ramp time to learn systems and internal politics. So some companies, and I've worked for companies like this, where there are people you don't talk to on Monday morning because they were out all night on Sunday, like playing 7 fantasy football teams. So you leave them alone on Monday and you ask them for a favor on Tuesday, that then they kick around until Thursday, and then you get it actually done on Friday. So you have to learn those politics on when you can and can't do things, or who you should and shouldn't talk to, and who you talk to first before you ask permission to do the thing that you're trying to do. I mean, it's ridiculous. If you do get someone who comes from outside your company or outside the industry, they'll say, this is how we did it, right? And that can be toxic to some environments, because it's like, great, I don't care how you did it in the animal husbandry industry. This is trucking. This is totally different. It's something where that mindset, where they try to fit your business onto what they know already. The other side of it is, if you get into someone right out of school, well, in school, they taught us this way. Well, that's theory versus actual practice. And the two can be vastly different. Sometimes they can be hand in hand. So, you have to fight that occasionally. There's possible animosity and reduced aid for an outside hire. You're the outsider, you're the pirate coming in to plunder the company, right? Or you're a parasite, it's the pirate parasite scenario. Are you just there to draw away from my potential bonus around Christmas? Are you the person that got hired when I wanted that job, but they just didn't look internally because they didn't believe they had a person to do it? Are you now all of a sudden a department head? Were you trained by people that are now your subordinates, or that are people that could have been in there? That's not a good culture fit, and that happens. And it doesn't happen intentionally all the time, but it can happen. So you end up getting reduced aid sometimes with that, where, I will begrudgingly hand you the report you asked for, but at the same time, I go outside and curse up a storm. There's pressure to succeed, as always, right? There's a honeymoon phase for a new hire, and then there's a where's my solution? Give me my thing. And everybody that's an external hire knows that's coming. So there's that pressure to develop something. The other thing that's interesting with an outside hire, especially in the data science world, is poaching. So we find that there are a lot of times where, as a consultant, we step in and like, hey, we had a data scientist and somebody offered him more money because they changed their LinkedIn profile. We have people go through our Data Science Academy that's connected to the AIM Code School. As soon as they change their LinkedIn profile, they start getting phone calls, because data people are difficult to find. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't have someone internally, so I have to hire externally. There's a time and a place for it. Don't get me wrong. But you have to get the right person with the right mindset. And you have to understand what you're coming into as an external hire. And most people don't, but we like to make sure our students are aware of that possibility and that contingency. And of course, the ubiquitous, so much more. There's just so many different things that come into why you can fail. So kind of like I mentioned, this is a failed data science project right here, right? This is the one where someone came in, they were building something up. They were working on it hard. They changed their look. And then this is my favorite saying: they got more money, a better offer. They got an opportunity to go to Texas. They went to Hawaii. This is what this looks like, kind of tongue in cheek, obviously, but I'm driving the bus and all of a sudden, you know what? I got a better deal. I'm out. And so you as a company are now left with this burning hulk of a mess to figure out how to fix it, how to get working. Sorry, it's apparently FedEx time. But you've got this bus that you have to deal with, and you have to clean up the mess. So that's difficult. The good news is you've already hired the right person. You just don't know it yet. So the overlooked option is that internal hire, right? You've already hired them. You don't have to go to HR. You don't have to go through all the process of salary negotiation, all that kind of stuff. They already signed up and are there every single day. You have the boots on the ground scenario, right? Where they are in the middle of everything. They understand the problems the company's facing. They know the challenges. They know the legacy system that nobody appreciates, but the CEO bought it back in 1984, so that you have to keep using it because he can't be wrong or whatever. They have boots on the ground knowledge that you can't get from somewhere else. They know the office politics, so they know that if you need to ask somebody to do something, bringing in donuts and coffee the day before typically means that's going to be a yes. It's an opportunity for advancement versus attrition. I worked at a company one time where all the executive management was the same family. And it was a family-owned business, but it wasn't a family-run business, but they just happened to promote everybody that's a family member. And the CEO is a great friend of mine and has known my family for a long time. And he goes, hey, where do you see yourself going in my company? I was like, to be honest, I don't see myself going past a manager because everyone's 30, I'm 22, and you don't have a daughter that I can marry to where I can get in the family. And he laughed. It was a little inappropriate, but we had a good time. And that, so I knew early on in that company that my level of advancement was very limited because I couldn't get through certain layers. So that attrition model of I'm waiting for someone to retire or die is not really a career driving thought process for some people. When you go into an internal person, they own the solution, right? It's their baby. They brought it into the world. They've got the fire and the passion with it because it's their solution. You also get coworker and team support, right? So if you find the right person and you cultivate that person from within, your coworkers know that, hey, Billy or Susie or whoever the person is really going out on a limb here. They're doing something crazy. We got to make sure they succeed because they like that person, because they're a culture fit. So you'll see their teammates, look, hey, you're my new boss. What do you need, boss? And people get excited and rally around that person, which you don't get from an external hire. They're also driven to innovate. When you pull that person from inside your existing talent, they want to see things succeed because they are really excited about an opportunity. So they go, here's plan A, here's plan B. Oh, and by the way, I got C, D, E, and F lined up in my head. I'm just going to figure that out here in a minute. But they need additional skills, right? So they may or may not have the right skill set, which is easy to do when you have the right connectivity and all that stuff. So the last one is that they are loyal. I can't stress this enough. If you give somebody an opportunity to run a data team from internal that now steps into a position of almost prestige and excitement, if I come in 20 minutes later and go, hey, you know what, I'm going to pay you 20 grand more. More often than not, unless it's a ridiculous, stupid offer, they will turn those people down because they are loyal to that opportunity and they are grateful for that chance for advancement. So let's look at this from a race car methodology. I'm a car guy. I sell cars and all that kind of stuff. I like driving fast stuff. So let's use a race metaphor or analogy here. So you first have to start with an enthusiastic learner, right? Somebody who is excited about becoming a race car driver. Then you have to have a seasoned pro in the mix, right? So you can't just jump in a car and go be a race car driver at pro levels. You have to kind of get some tutelage in schools and things like that. So you have these two people come together. The first 100 laps, you take the pro driver and you let them drive, and the student is the passenger. So if I'm the pro, I'm driving the course, and I'm saying, here's where I'm going to come into this corner. This is where you brake. This is when you accelerate. This one turn is off camber, so when you come over the other side, you want to have traction for this part. And the student is just like a sponge looking for water. They're absorbing all the information. They're seeing it in real time. They're an active participant in that process, but they are not actually the ones making decisions. Then you flip. The student then is driving. The pro is sitting right next to them. They're able to communicate in real time. There's a lot of hands-on things. You can feel the difference in the car and all that. But the student has greater drive to perform because they've literally just seen what the pro level, the watermark is for a pro, and they're trying to get themselves up to that mark. And they're doing it knowing that the person that set that bar wants them to hit that bar, right? That's a great feeling when you have someone who wants you to succeed and even exceed what they can do, because it's a joint effort that way. Then there comes a point where the pro has to step out, right? You have to do it on your own. You have to fail on your own. I'm a huge believer in failure because I've learned more lessons from failing than I have from succeeding throughout my life. I hate it, but you have to fail at sometimes. So the student then drives, and the pro's on the radio, right? So they're doing laps, they're driving like, hey, I can't get this corner to do it right, whatever. Oh, it's because you're braking too late, you're hitting the gas too soon, whatever. But here's the interesting paradigm, right? So you change the race type. You go from road racing to off-road racing. It's the same underpinning concepts of, when to hit the gas, when to turn, how the vehicle handles and all that. But there are some huge fundamental changes in how that you interact with that environment. So if you change races, you just go back to the pro or find a new pro that has that skill set, and you build on the skill set you already have. That is where you see things that shift in the data world, where they're doing one idea to another. But as long as they have the concept of that working, so they'll be able to succeed. So this is a side-by-side, right? The external hire versus the mentor path, as I'll call it. So the external hire, you hire them on day one. They build up their skill set. They ease into the job. They find the political environment, all that kind of stuff. So by the end of a year, you may have a V1 solution of whatever data project you're trying to execute. Which is a fair assessment for a lot of people, because it takes some time to do that. When you do the mentor with an internal person working on it, your ramp looks a lot like this. It is much, much faster because the pro is doing the driving and is really, making things move forward. But you have basically 2 for 1. The internal person is excited and energized and engaged, and they are pushing towards that. And they already know where all the berries, the passwords are, the bodies are buried, all that kind of stuff. And my dog says hi. But they already know where a lot of things are that the external hire doesn't. So what happens after you hit V1? You're done, right? Absolutely not. You're in the data culture now, right? You're embracing this. So your internal team can start doing V2, and because they're already on a good path, they're on a good trajectory, you'll see a V2 in a shorter time frame than you would the V1 from an external hire. Because you've had a mentor who was neck deep in your data, who's a pro and an expert, they also start seeing opportunities and things that you could do. So while your internal team is working towards V2, you can engage the mentor and have them do R&D and come up with a new project altogether. So in this short period of time, in this year that we're showing here, by the end of the year, you have not 1, but 2, possibly even 3 fully deployed data solutions that are building on top of everything else. So additional benefits is the internal team is more confident, right? When you know that you have somebody that is in a learning environment and you're safe and you have a bailout button, right, the eject button, you're willing to take bigger steps and take challenges on that are maybe a little out of your skill set, because you know that you can fail and still succeed in the long run by tapping the right access to the right people. The C-suite can get vetted feedback, right? So it's the helicopter parents, like, hey, how's this data project going? What are you doing? How's this? Are we making any money on this yet? That kind of stuff drives people nuts. But when you have a mentor in the mix who's there working with them, the C-suite can bug the hell out of the mentor or the pro and go, hey, how are they doing? Like, yeah, they're really getting this. It's going to be another couple of weeks, but they're doing it. They're sorting it out. It takes the pressure from the C-suite off of the team actually doing it so they can do their job. There's no shortage of applicants when the team expands. When you hire somebody from within, you give them that charge. When you go, hey, we need to add 2 more people, you will have no shortage of internal people like, I want that same opportunity. I want to be a part of this. This is cool. I like this. I want this. And they step forward and they do that. And it's a cool experience to have when everyone gets fired up and engaged. You're also backfilling a lower payroll job, not filling a higher ticket, right? So if you hire an external data scientist for 6 figures, it's just a nice big scary number, right? But that's one thing. But if you're taking an analyst or a business intelligence person or an Excel jockey, whatever the phrase you want to do, and you're bringing them up, the person you're replacing them with is a much lower salary requirement. So it's easier to find those people. It's easier to get those people in place, and you're not breaking the bank at the same time. You've also initiated a culture shift. So people start to see data as a good thing, right? Remember, the data is dumb. By doing it this way, people are more engaged, they're more intrigued by it, and they want to participate, and they want to see how data can be executed. Your other business units are more comfortable with data, right? So typically people start with sales and marketing because it drives revenue, but other groups like accounting, internal processes, things like that, they typically don't want other people messing with their stuff because that's their stuff. But when you have an internal person who is deploying a new solution, who is starting to show ROI, starting to show some cool innovation, all that, those other business units kind of want to come along with it. Like, well, hey, we want to play too. Like how here's access to our accounting software. Here's access to this. And they get better buy-in all the way around. You also get innovation in unexpected areas, which is interesting because the internal people, when they are truly engaged and they're firing on all cylinders, you'll see those people take side projects on. They'll take work and they'll do things outside of that project to find the next innovation, because they will see things as they're building it out that they know from being there for that long will help benefit the company. So the right way to do this is to transfer ownership of the process. So you have the two teams here. So you have a mentor team and an internal team. So the mentor team owns it at first, and then over time they drop off because they should not own that project long term. The internal team starts off as kind of coming along with it, and then over time they take over ownership, and they are the ones that own it and champion it going forward. So your V1 deployment can happen anywhere in that range. You can deploy version 1 with the mentor team still driving the bus, or the internal team. It really doesn't matter as long as it's an agreed upon point where that transition happens. That way the internal people know that they are the ones that are going to be owning that solution and really championing it going forward. Then you see a V2, right? V2 can happen independent of the mentor team or the pro team, if you will. But that typically follows, not typically follows right away, but it follows soon after V1 hits, because they want to keep going with the momentum and the initiative they have and the thoughts and the things that they saw. So then they continue to own that process going forward. However, they may run into something that's outside their capabilities or outside their opportunities. So then they say, well, let's co-author a V2.1, right? And the mentor team can step back in and work as extra hands on keyboards, which helps, spring load that whole thing to move forward a lot faster. The other thing, like we talked about earlier, is you can get a R&D track, which typically works great when you have a hybrid model of both teams working together. So the mentor team can work and play in the mad scientist thing, and black box, clear box, whatever you want to do. But the internal team can step in and go, hey, this is totally different than what Bob wants to do in marketing and this, and then they can steer the bus a little bit inside. So it's a very interesting model to innovate without having to prioritize what's important and what's not for time allocation. So let's kind of recap. So the external hire, right? It's the hired gun. It's somebody coming in. Depending on who that person is, and they are hard to find. That's why we have a demand for our training, is because those people tend to get jobs pretty fast. So having that external hire is kind of a mixed bag sometimes, but with the right person coming in, you can get lucky, you can get it done. Or, shameless plug, if they go through the Omaha Data Science Academy, we can train them to make sure that they have some success by being aware of these things. The old internal hire, right? Pointing the finger and saying, you're the guy. Well, they typically look like this after a few weeks of being stressed out and kind of under the gun at all times. But ultimately, the model that we see being the most successful, especially with remote and all that, is the mentor model. It's just, working with somebody, engaging in a team effort, building from the ground up, successful opportunities and successful deployment of solutions and opportunity and innovation. So right back to the shameless plug. I've done it once or twice already, but with contemporary analysis, we like to think of ourselves as that mentor team, as that pro. And then with the Omaha Data Science Academy, we can actually train people to fill those roles and levels and skill sets and bring them up so that as they take over ownership, their skill sets match their internal opportunities. We do that hand in hand at the same time. That way, everybody's on board. Everybody's, driving towards the same resolution. And if something changes and another team needs to be brought up or something like that, we're able to step in and help out with that. So the Canon ODSA thing, we're software agnostic. We don't care because truthfully, it makes us better at what we do. A lot of people are, Power BI shops or their Tableau or their, Data IQ or whatever. We work on all those platforms because it's, steel sharpens steel. So we like to work in that environment. We've got the diverse portfolio of verticals where we've done everything from agricultural stuff to heavy equipment to healthcare to financials to banking. And what really is interesting is some things that work in agriculture work in healthcare, which doesn't make any sense when you say it out loud. But when you look at the data and how the data flows, having that diversity in portfolio base helps find some pretty innovative solutions when it comes time. We can do individual or team training. With remote learning, we're trying to keep classes about 12 people or less. That doesn't mean we can't do three classes back to back to back and train 36 people at a time. So scalability is not a problem. We have a data analyst track, which is kind of the freshman sophomore classes. If you're looking at a college level, those are getting people started. That's I'm a IT person, or I'm a very entry level tech person that's getting into the data side of it. And then we have a data scientist track, which is the second half of the class, where you're learning to do things, predictive analytics, machine learning, AI, really the high level stuff, which you can do back to back. You can do them one at a time. We have a lot of flexibility on how we do that. We are Nebraska accredited. Like I said, we are tied into the code school through AIM. We do them virtual or in person. With COVID, we obviously prefer virtual, but if somebody is a stickler, then we can social distance and do it in person. And more importantly, we have an alumni pool. So we have people that we've shared this kind of mindset with. We've shared the pitfalls of being the external hire that may have some adversity to overcome. And we have people that, they find a company that doesn't really enrich them the way they might want to, or something like that. And they reach back out to us, say, hey, you know what? I need a bigger challenge. I need a new opportunity. I want to go into this space or that space. And so they reach back out to us. So we have people that we stay in touch with, and they help one another because they understand the value of a mentor. So we maintain a Slack channel for all our alumni. And, I get in there as the non-data scientist guy, and I'm like, what the hell are these people talking about? But they are really sharing and fixing complex ideas across the board. So obviously you're welcome to check out either website, canworksmart.com, canlearnsmart. We do have the Infotech page up that's got a little fun in between there, landing page for you. So you're welcome to do that as well. But and then all day today in our booth, we have live guests at the top of every hour where we're doing kind of a 8-hour podcast. So I get to take a little reprieve here and do this, and then I got to go back to it. But so with that, I'll stop sharing my screen here and looking through. Holy cow, got all kinds of stuff here. So kind of at a point where we're taking questions and all that. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and toss them in there. And let us know kind of what we're looking at. We've got a few minutes left on this, but happy to answer questions that may have come up. The fun part of waiting for questions to come in. So let's see what we've got here in the different chats and things like that. Oh, and good point, Isaac. So there is a survey at the end of the session. By all means, fill that out. Strangely enough, it's just more data to digest. So we enjoy going through that and looking at what feedback we've got from individuals and all that. So any questions at this point? 41 people here. I'm sure someone's got a question or someone's typing. Hopefully it's Infotech, so I'm guessing you're not Hunt and Peck typers. I'm guessing everyone's pretty fast, but and again, I can't see anybody in the thing unless they want to be called out specifically, but I feel like this made sense. Does this feel like well, thank you, Kurt. But it's something where the traction that we see when people do this right, it is true. It's like a B12 shot. I mean, people get excited, they get fired up, and some really great innovation comes out of deploying this the right way. And people don't have to worry about, they don't have to worry about where do you fail. So here's a quick question from Christian. I'll just read it out in case you're not in the chat. Do you have a sense of percentage of organizations who go through each path that you mentioned? We typically, it depends on the business, honestly. It depends on the business model, but we've seen more instances where they've hired the external person because they don't think there's an internal person who can do it. I don't know what the exact percentage is, which is kind of funny, having just talked about data extensively, not knowing the exact percentage, but it's 60-40. It's kind of right in the middle, but I think more often than not, we see the external hire. Truthfully, as a consultancy, we pick up some of our larger projects through fixing someone's bus fire of a project they left. Whether it was they just couldn't understand the technology, they were spending too much time trying to vet out software or something like that. The bigger ticket items for us are putting out someone else's fire. which is not the way you want to do it, because we also have to overcome the hurdle, which is the data is dumb, right? So it's well, here's what it's going to cost to fix this. Like, well, data's dumb. We tried this already, and it's an absolute dumpster fire of a project. I'm like, well, yeah, it's because you didn't do it right. So, and there's a polite way to say it, but that's the we're talking about it. So, yeah, the number of businesses that just pick somebody out, their results kind of vary based on the person, obviously, like we just talked about, but more importantly, that person is always kind of a little hesitant. And when we step in to work with them to help them on their next big project or something like that, you can visually see the relief on their face, because they may have been working with a legacy program and they just didn't feel empowered enough to say, we need to get rid of this dinosaur. Like, this needs to go away. And so as the outside person, for whatever reason, when you step in as an outsider, as a consultant, people always believe that person more than they do the internal person who's screaming from the rooftops, like, please get me off Windows 95. But it's the way it goes. So it's, but we see both. We see hybrid models as well, where they hire someone in, and then that person goes, I need a team, and they bring 3 people, and the 3 people maybe do or don't have the right setup. But it's been exciting to see what we've had, and it's been cool to see this deployed several times and work. And that biggest paradigm shift is that culture shift of data will lead to decisions. So, but other than that, we got about 5 minutes left. So unless anybody wants to throw in some questions like that, I'm at a point where I can pull up my dog and walk my dog around, all that kind of stuff. All right, so I got some questions here. We'll go through. So a data person would grow up in 1 year for your team. How many have you hired from how many have you hired from outside? So our setup as a company, we typically work with 1099 contractors because we can scale and grow like that. So the data scientists we work with, which is funny because as soon as we hire them and put them on salary, they typically get poached for 2 to 3 times what we can pay them. And there are a lot of people that are, we've been the mothership for a lot of data science teams around Omaha and the area here through that, which is great. We love our alumni. But the people we work with that are 1099 contractors are people that are hungry for a new challenge, a new question, a new difficult problem to solve, that urge to solve a problem. So we work with people from all over the spectrum of what they do. But when we get into working with teams, we'll look at the existing personnel. We'll find what traits and skill sets might be there. And if there's a person there, we definitely want to recommend that person first. But if there isn't, then we can help find someone who's a culture fit based on the information we've seen and the experience we've had. So when you get the next question would be, how do you go about finding mentors and trainees? It kind of dovetails in what I just said. So the biggest thing is, especially when you're talking about data people or people that are in the tech space, you can learn a lot by what software they like to work in, which is a weird way to put that, I think, but it might make sense to the people in this group. But when they absolutely love a program or a solution and they just can't stop talking about it, it gives you insight into what that person's mindset is and how they work. You can also get a lot from just talking to them. An introvert versus an extrovert is a really obvious example. But when you're trying to find that, the biggest thing that we always do is find a common ground. And thankfully, data is that common ground, and that contagious environment of, probably a bad choice of term during COVID, but that good contagious environment of like, we're going to do something really, really cool and people are going to have their minds blown. And I don't think there's anybody that's immune to that electric environment of a collaborative effort that then I get a handoff to you. It's I'll help do 60% or 40% of the work, whatever the split is, but you're the one that gets to get the prize at the end, the trophy, the bonus, the raise, and all that. And there are very few times when people don't want that, to be a part of that environment and that activity. So finding that fit back and forth is there's as well science. candid people wanting to talk about themselves and what. Hopefully that answers those two questions there for you guys. And I, one of those things. I'm trying to be mindful of the time. They like us to kind of keep it clean so everybody can jump into other booths and things and then get into another breakout session. It's been a lot of fun working with AIM and the Code School and the ODSA and all that. We get to meet people from all over the country and do all kinds of fun stuff. So, it's a great partnership to have, and we're glad that they continue to do things like Infotech and HTC, even when it's difficult to do it. And these virtual events have been great. So, and I'm not just saying that because they're our friends, but because they're our neighbors and because they do great stuff. So, Joy, thank you very much. And Isaac's popping in yet again with the survey. Make sure you fill it out. Let us know what you think. And then obviously, if you want to stop in later on, we'll have people at the top of every hour that we're talking to at our booth here at the breakout, the expo booth. And it's a little mix of everything. We've got, the director of the data science for the state of Florida and other people and all that kind of stuff coming in too. So we'll have some fun. So if anyone needs to get a hold of me, you've got my LinkedIn as well. You're obviously welcome to hit me up through the platform here with Hopin, and we can connect that way. But really excited to see what everyone does with this. And by all means, if we can help, let us know. So, all right. Well, I'm going to head out for the time being, and hopefully you all have a good time at Infotech, and make sure you make lots of connections and stop by some booths and learn some new stuff. So thanks for the opportunity.